Hey guys, welcome back to my channel Sociology with Mahima. In this video, we will cover the topic hypothesis, which is a part of Unit 3 of IGNOU MSO 2. So let's get started. Let's first understand what is a hypothesis. A hypothesis is a tentative logical statement that proposes a possible relationship between two or more variables. It serves as a provisional answer to a research question, an assumption that researchers aim to test through observation, experimentation, or data analysis. In simpler terms, it is a prediction that connects theory to empirical investigation. In social science research, a hypothesis acts as a bridge between abstract concepts and real-world evidence. It transforms broad theoretical ideas into specific testable propositions, allowing researchers to verify or reject them through systematic inquiry. A well-formulated hypothesis should be clear, specific, and testable, meaning it must be possible to evaluate it through empirical data. Ambiguous or vague statement cannot be considered valid hypothesis because they cannot be proven or disproven through research. Now, there are several types of hypotheses. Some of are null hypothesis. This suggests that there is no relationship or no difference between the studied variables. For example, there is no relationship between social media use and loneliness among college students. The null hypothesis serves as a baseline assumption that researchers test against. Another is alternative hypothesis. This proposes that there is a relationship or difference between variables. For instance, higher social media use is associated with higher loneliness among college students. It is the researcher's prediction that challenges the null hypothesis. Next is directional hypothesis. It is not only predicts a relationship but also specifies the direction of the effect. Example, increased social media use increases loneliness. Next is non-directional hypothesis. It predicts the existence of a relationship without specifying whether it is positive or negative. Example, social media use is related to loneliness. Now, for a hypothesis to be good and scientifically useful, it should have certain characteristics like it must be testable, that is, capable of being verified or refuted using evidence. It should be simple and specific, focusing on a limited number of variables. It should be based on existing theory or prior research, ensuring logical grounding. It must involve measurable variables so that empirical testing is possible. Now let's understand how a hypothesis is tested in social research. Testing a hypothesis is a systematic process in which a researcher evaluates whether the assumptions or predictions made in a hypothesis are supported by empirical data. The goal is to determine if the relationship between variables as stated in the hypothesis truly exist in the real world. The process involves several sequential steps, from formulating the hypothesis to interpreting and reporting results, each ensuring that the findings are scientific, reliable, and valid. The first step in this process is formulate the hypothesis. The first step is to state both the null and alternative hypothesis clearly. The null hypothesis assumes that there is no relationship or difference between variables, while the alternative hypothesis suggests that a relationship or difference does exist. The researcher must specify the variables being studied and, if applicable, indicate the direction of the relationship. This clarity helps guide the entire research process. Second step is operationalize the variables. In this step, abstract concepts are turned into measurable forms. Researchers define how each variable will be observed or quantified. This is called operationalization. For instance, social media use can be measured in hours per day, or loneliness can be measured using a standardized loneliness scale. This ensures that data collected is consistent and can be analyzed meaningfully. Third step is to choose research design and sampling. The researchers select an appropriate research design, such as experimental, non-experimental, cross-sectional, or longitudinal. They also decide how to select participants and how many to include. This step ensures that data collection is scientifically structured and representative of the population. Fourth step is to collect the data. After planning, the researcher gathers data using suitable tools and techniques such as questionnaires, interviews, observations, experiments, or secondary data like census or existing records. The method depends on the research design chosen. The data should be collected ethically, accurately, and systematically. Fifth step is to analyze the data. Once data is collected, it must be analyzed to see whether it supports or contradicts the hypothesis. For quantitative research, statistical tests such as t-test, correlation, regression, or ANOVA are used depending on the type of variable and design. Whereas for qualitative research, analysis involves identifying patterns, themes, and meanings in data to see whether they align with the hypothesis. While qualitative analysis is less formal, it still tests whether observed patterns support the researcher's propositions. Next step, that is sixth step, is to decide and interpret results. After analysis, the researcher makes a decision. If the p-value or probability value is less than the significance level, which is alpha being 0.05, the null hypothesis is rejected, meaning there is evidence supporting the alternative hypothesis. But if p-value is greater, we fail to reject null hypothesis, implying no significant evidence for alternative hypothesis. Besides statistical significance, researchers also consider practical significance, that is, effect size and real-world meaning. Seventh step and the final step is report findings. Finally, the results are presented in a report or research paper. The researcher explains whether the hypothesis was supported or rejected and discusses the limitations, biases, and implications of the findings for theory, policy, or practice. Transparency in reporting strengthens the credibility of research. Now let's discuss some important concepts in hypothesis testing. Type 1 error. It occurs when the researcher wrongly rejects a true null hypothesis. Type 2 error happens when the researcher fails to reject a false null hypothesis. Power of the test. The ability of the test to detect a true effect. Higher power means more accurate results. Significance level. The threshold, that is commonly 0.05, used to decide whether a result is statistically significant. Let's take an example to better understand this. Let's assume 𝐂𝐳 or null hypothesis is there is no relationship between study hours and exam scores, and alternative hypothesis or H1 is more study hours are associated with higher exam scores. Researchers collect data on both variables, calculate correlation or regression, and check whether results are statistically significant. Based on findings, they accept or reject 𝐂𝐳 or null hypothesis. That's all for today's video. Here are some questions which have come into the exams in previous years. Thank you for joining the class. See you in the next video.